shattered horizons. The sterile white corridors of the Novaran research facility seemed to pulse with an unnatural silence. Dr. Zara Kanek stood motionless, her research tablet clutched tightly against her chest, her emerald-green eyes fixed on the panel of senior scientists seated before her. The soft hum of environmental regulators did nothing to mask the tension that crackled through the air. Zara's discovery was unprecedented, a genetic marker that suggested intelligent life forms could evolve beyond their predetermined biological constraints. It challenged everything the Novaran scientific community believed about genetic determinism, a concept so deeply ingrained in their society that questioning it was tantamount to heresy. Your research is not just incorrect, the lead administrator, Dr. Voran Mal, spoke with a cold precision that sent shivers down Zara's spine. It is dangerous. The High Council will not tolerate such radical propositions. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. But the evidence is clear. The genetic sequences I've identified demonstrate a potential for adaptive transformation that goes beyond our current understanding. This could revolutionize how we view biological evolution. Dr. Mal's cybernetic eye flickered, its metallic surface reflecting the harsh laboratory lighting. Revolutionize? More like destabilize. Our society is built on genetic prediction and social planning. Your theory threatens the very foundation of Novaran civilization. The other scientists exchanged calculated glances, their expressions a mixture of contempt and scientific disapproval. Zara knew she was standing at the precipice of something monumental, and potentially destructive. I'm not suggesting we dismantle our entire social structure, Zara argued, spreading her research data across the holographic display. I'm proposing that we expand our understanding. Look at these genetic markers. They suggest a fluidity we've never considered possible. A senior geneticist, Dr. Rema Tell, leaned forward. Her voice was quiet but sharp. Fluidity is chaos. Chaos leads to unpredictability. Unpredictability destroys social harmony. The hearing was more of a formality than a genuine scientific discussion. Zara could see the decision had been made long before she entered the room. Her groundbreaking research would be suppressed, her reputation destroyed. You have two choices, Dr. Mal announced, his tone clinical and detached. Retract your research and accept a reassignment to a remote research station, or face complete academic exile. The choice was no choice at all. Academic exile meant more than losing her position. It meant losing her entire identity within Novaran society. Her family would be marked, her future erased. Zara's mind raced. She had spent years collecting this data, risking everything to challenge the rigid genetic determinism that controlled every aspect of Novaran life. Families were formed through genetic matching, careers predetermined by genetic potential, and individual choice was a concept as foreign as the distant star systems they had yet to explore. Her research suggested something revolutionary, that genetic potential was not a fixed path but a dynamic, evolving network of possibilities. It meant that individuals could potentially transcend the limitations imposed by their genetic blueprints. I will not retract my research, Zara said firmly, her voice cutting through the clinical atmosphere of the hearing room. The consequence was immediate. Dr. Mal's cybernetic eye turned a deep crimson, the universal signal of absolute rejection. Then you are hereby exiled. Your research will be classified, your academic credentials revoked. You will be removed from the central planetary database and provided with minimal survival resources. Removal from the database was a death sentence in all but name. Without genetic records, without professional credentials, she would become a ghost, a non-entity in a society that valued genetic predictability above all else. As security protocols activated and a containment field began to form around her, Zara clutched her research tablet. Years of work, of challenging assumptions, of seeking truth, compressed into a single digital repository. The force field hummed to life, its translucent blue energy signaling her imminent departure. Through the shimmering barrier, she could see the cold, calculating faces of her former colleagues. No emotion, no compassion, just pure, clinical judgment. In that moment, Zara made a decision that would change everything. As the containment field prepared to transport her to a remote extraction point, she initiated a covert data transmission. Her research, her life's work, would not be silenced. Somewhere, someone would understand its significance. The universe was vast, and her journey was just beginning. As the transportation beam began to dissolve her molecular structure, Zara's last thought was a defiant promise to herself: this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a much larger story. Cosmic Crossroads. The emergency beacon of Zara's experimental research pod flickered erratically, its circuits barely maintaining functionality after the catastrophic system failure. What had begun as a calculated escape from Novaran space had transformed into a desperate fight for survival. Interstellar navigation systems were failing, life support was compromised, and the vast emptiness of space seemed to close in around her. Through the fractured view screen, an unexpected planet emerged, a swirling orb of blue and green, unlike anything in her extensive astronomical databases. Earth. A planet she had only read about in classified research archives, dismissed by Novaran scientists as a primitive and unremarkable world. The crash was anything but graceful. Emergency landing protocols engaged automatically, but the pod was more research vessel than escape craft. Metallic hull screeched against dense forest terrain, carving a devastating path through ancient trees. When silence finally descended, Zara remained motionless, her body suspended in the crash restraints, running a diagnostic on her physical condition. Miraculously, she was alive. The pod's environmental systems began to fail, triggering emergency release protocols. As the hatch slowly opened, Zara was confronted by an entirely alien atmosphere, humid, rich with organic complexity, nothing like the sterile, controlled environments of Nevera. Her first breath was a shock. The air was alive with particles, with scents, with a vibrancy that her genetic conditioning had never prepared her to experience. Distant sounds of wildlife, chirping, rustling, a complex symphony of natural life, surrounded her. Diagnostic systems compromised, her personal communication implant announced in a clinical tone. Survival protocols initiated. Warning: genetic camouflage systems at 62% functionality. She knew what that meant. Her Novaran physiological adaptations would slowly begin to break down, making her increasingly visible and vulnerable. The research tablet she had managed to save during her escape would be her lifeline, a repository of knowledge, her only connection to everything she had lost. Hours passed. Zara methodically assessed her surroundings, using the pod's remaining sensors to map the immediate terrain. She was in what appeared to be a dense forest region, temperature and atmospheric conditions surprisingly compatible with her biological requirements. As night began to fall, the forest transformed. Bioluminescent fungi emerged from tree bark, creating a soft, ethereal glow. Zara found herself mesmerized. On Nevera, everything was calculated, controlled. Here, life existed in beautiful, chaotic complexity. A sudden movement caught her attention. Not an animal, but something more deliberate. Footsteps. Human footsteps. Identification protocol, her implant warned. Caution advised. A figure emerged from between the trees, a human male, dressed in what appeared to be wilderness exploration gear. His face was a mixture of curiosity and caution, a hunting rifle held loosely but ready. "Well," he said, his voice a mixture of wonder and suspicion, "that's not something you see every day." Zara's linguistic implant worked overtime, translating and processing the communication protocols. She raised her hands slowly, a universal gesture of non-aggression that seemed to transcend species. "I mean no harm," she responded, her voice carefully modulated to appear as non-threatening as possible. The human, Marcus Reyes, her implant helpfully identified from his clothing's embedded identification chips, took a step closer. His eyes were scanning her, taking in the strange metallic sheen of her skin, the advanced technology of her partially destroyed research pod. "You're not from around here," Marcus stated. It wasn't a question. Zara's mind raced. Years of scientific training, of understanding cultural communication protocols, kicked into high gear. Revelation would be dangerous. Deception would be necessary. "I'm a researcher," she said carefully. "My expedition encountered complications." Marcus lowered the rifle but didn't relax completely. A researcher who crash lands in the middle of the Cascade Wilderness? That's quite a complication. Little did Zara know that this chance encounter would be the first step in a journey that would challenge everything she understood about life, evolution, and the very nature of intelligent existence. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, as if anticipating the extraordinary story about to unfold. Whispers of resistance. The research station nestled deep within the Cascade Mountains was unlike anything Zara had ever encountered. What Marcus Reyes described as a wildlife research center was, in fact, a sophisticated scientific outpost that defied her initial assumptions about human technological capabilities. "We're not just tracking bears and logging forest data," Marcus explained as he guided her through the facility's secure corridors. "This is a multinational research hub focusing on environmental adaptation and potential extraterrestrial threat assessment." Zara's implant worked furiously, translating and analyzing every detail. The humans were more advanced than Novaran archives had suggested, their technological sophistication hidden beneath a veneer of apparent simplicity. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the station's lead researcher, studied Zara with a mixture of scientific curiosity and carefully concealed suspicion. Her dark eyes missed nothing: the slight metallic sheen of Zara's skin, the almost imperceptible technological augmentations that her Novaran genetics provided. "Your pod's design," Elena said, spreading holographic schematics across the research table, "it's unlike any known terrestrial or satellite technology. The material composition alone is decades, if not centuries, beyond current human capabilities." Zara chose her words carefully. "Advanced research vessel," she offered, knowing that partial truths were often more convincing than complete fabrications. Marcus leaned against a nearby console, his earlier wilderness roughness replaced by a more calculated demeanor. "We've been tracking unusual energy signatures in this region for months. Your crash wasn't just a random event. The implications hung in the air." Zara realized she was caught in a complex web of scientific investigation and potential planetary defense protocols. "There's something else," Elena said, bringing up a series of complex energy readings. "These signatures match anomalies we've detected in several global locations. Quantum fluctuations that suggest..." A sudden alarm interrupted her. Red warning lights began to pulse, and the room's security systems engaged with a soft, menacing hum. "Incoming quantum disturbance," a computerized voice announced. "External threat detected." Marcus moved with surprising speed, his earlier persona as a wilderness guide completely replaced by what was clearly advanced tactical training. "We've got a problem," he said, pulling up a global map with multiple pulsing red points. Zara's research tablet began to resonate, its Novaran quantum encryption systems detecting something familiar yet terrifyingly alien. "Those signatures," she whispered, "they're not just random energy fluctuations. They're communication markers." Elena turned to her, a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "Communication for what?" Before Zara could respond, the research station's main display erupted with a complex series of quantum-encrypted messages. Novaran communication protocols, signals she recognized from her years of research, were bleeding through Earth's technological barriers. "They're tracking me," Zara realized, her voice barely a whisper. "The Novaran Retrieval Division doesn't accept failure. They're coming to eliminate any potential contamination of their genetic research paradigm." Marcus exchanged a look with Elena. Contamination? You mean? Me, Zara interrupted. My research. The evidence that challenges everything their society believes about genetic determinism. The quantum signals continued to pulse, a silent invasion preparing to breach Earth's technological defenses. Zara's exile had brought something far more dangerous than just herself to this unsuspecting planet. The resistance would begin here, in this mountain research station. Humans and a Novaran exile, united against a threat neither fully understood. We need a plan, Elena said, her fingers already dancing across complex computational interfaces. And we need it now. Zara looked at the emerging quantum signatures, at Marcus and Elena, and understood that the true test of her controversial research was about to begin. Adaptation. Survival. Resistance. The universe was watching. Fractured connections. The quantum encryption continued to pulse, a silent symphony of impending invasion. Zara's research tablet transformed the research station's primary computer systems into a makeshift defense network, her Novaran technological understanding merging with human adaptive capabilities. They're using quantum entanglement communication, Zara explained, her fingers moving rapidly across holographic displays. Traditional Earth detection systems won't even register their approach. Elena Rodriguez stood beside her, a cup of now cold coffee forgotten on the console. How long do we have? Marcus Reyes had transformed the research station's primary meeting room into a tactical command center. Military-grade communication systems intermingled with advanced scientific equipment, creating a hybrid environment that spoke to humanity's capacity for rapid adaptation. Not long, Zara responded, her emerald eyes reflecting the complex data streams. The Novaran Retrieval Division doesn't negotiate. Their primary directive is to eliminate any potential genetic contamination. A new series of quantum signals began to pulse, more aggressive, more targeted. Zara recognized the specific frequency. They're scanning for my genetic signature, she muttered. They'll destroy everything in their path to ensure complete eradication. Elena's fingers flew across a separate console. We're detecting multiple quantum entry points. They're not just targeting you, they're preparing for a systematic reconnaissance of Earth's genetic diversity. The implications were staggering. The Novaran civilization viewed genetic variation as a threat to be controlled, eliminated. Earth, with its rich tapestry of biological diversity, represented everything their society feared. We need to do more than just defend, Marcus interjected, pulling up satellite imaging and quantum detection systems. We need to create a counter-strategy. Zara's research tablet began to compile data, her groundbreaking genetic research providing unexpected insights. My work challenged the Novaran belief in genetic determinism. They see diversity as chaos, but I saw it as the ultimate form of adaptation. A series of complex algorithms began to take shape, a hybrid defense system that combined Novaran quantum technology with human computational creativity. It was something neither civilization had ever conceived possible. They'll expect a traditional defensive response, Zara explained. We need to create something they cannot predict. Elena looked up, a dangerous glint in her eyes. You mean we turn their own methodology against them? The quantum signals intensified. Distant satellite systems began to show microscopic distortions, the first signs of the Novaran invasion preparing to breach Earth's technological barriers. Marcus activated a series of global communication protocols. We'll need international cooperation. This isn't just a scientific problem anymore, it's a planetary defense issue. Zara's genetic research took on a new dimension. The very thing that had caused her exile now became humanity's most potent weapon. Her discovery of genetic fluidity, the ability of intelligent species to adapt beyond predetermined constraints, was no longer just a theoretical concept. It was now a survival strategy. They're coming, she said quietly, watching the quantum signals intensify. and they have no idea what they're about to encounter. The research station hummed with an energy that combined scientific precision with something more primal, the human capacity for unexpected resistance. Quantum signals continued to pulse, a silent countdown to a conflict that would redefine the understanding of intelligence, adaptation, and survival. The fractured connections between two civilizations were about to be tested in ways neither could have anticipated. The universe held its breath. Stellar convergence. The moment of convergence arrived with a silence more profound than any sound. Quantum barriers rippled across the Earth's atmosphere, a complex network of defense that merged Zara's Novaran technological understanding with human computational creativity. The research station in the Cascade Mountains had transformed into humanity's first line of interstellar defense. Incoming quantum breach, Elena Rodriguez announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to face. Initiating adaptive response protocol. Marcus Reyes stood at the central command console, international communication channels open, a united front of scientific and military minds from across the globe. What had begun as a potential planetary threat had become something entirely unexpected, a moment of species-wide collaboration. Zara's research tablet pulsed with a complex algorithm, her life's work transformed into a defensive weapon. The genetic research that had caused her exile now became humanity's most sophisticated shield. The first Novaran quantum probe entered Earth's atmosphere. Unlike traditional invasion methods, this was a pure information assault, designed to scan, categorize, and ultimately neutralize any genetic diversity that threatened the Novaran understanding of evolutionary progression. But they had never encountered human adaptability. The quantum probe met a network of defenses that shifted, changed, and responded in ways its programming could not predict. Each attempt to categorize was met with a new pattern of resistance. Human genetic diversity, which the Novarans saw as chaotic, revealed itself as the ultimate evolutionary strategy. "They're trying to establish a genetic control matrix," Zara explained, her fingers moving across holographic displays. "But they can't comprehend the complexity of human genetic potential." Elena looked up, a smile playing at the edges of her mouth. "Sounds like your research in action." The quantum battle played out in microseconds, a conflict of information, a fundamental understanding of life itself. The Novaran system, built on rigid genetic determinism, found itself confronted by a species that defied every predictive model. Adaptation. Creativity. Unpredictability. Marcus watched the displays, understanding now what Zara had been trying to explain. "It's not about having the most advanced technology," he said quietly. "It's about the capacity to change." The Novaran quantum probes began to fracture. Their systematic approach collapsed against a defense mechanism that was less a wall and more a living, breathing network of potential. "They're retreating," Elena announced, disbelief and triumph mixing in her voice. Zara watched the quantum signatures dissolve, understanding the profound moment they had just witnessed. Her exile, her years of research, had led to this, a demonstration that genetic diversity was not a weakness, but the most powerful form of survival. "They won't understand," she said softly. "The Novaran civilization is built on control. They can't comprehend true adaptation." As the last quantum signatures faded, the research station fell into a profound silence. They had just defended not just a planet, but a fundamental principle of life itself. Marcus approached Zara, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What happens now?" She looked out the window at the Cascade Mountains, at a world that had just proven the central thesis of her life's work. "Now," Zara said, "we continue to learn. To grow. To adapt." The universe, vast and mysterious, seemed to pulse with a new understanding. Somewhere among the stars, the concept of evolution had just been redefined. And humanity had passed its first true test.